Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. In this video, we're going to be discussing one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful witch in history. It's not one of the Hogwarts founders, it's not McGonagall, and it's not Bellatrix. It's none other than Morgana Le Fay. Just recently, I made a video on Merlin, the most powerful wizard in history, so it felt wrong not to make one on the most powerful witch. Morgana, like Merlin, is a pseudo-historical figure, and in many of the different versions of folklore that she exists in, she is actually Merlin's nemesis. And once again, like Merlin, Morgana existed in both Harry Potter folklore and our own folklore, which makes her a really interesting character to research. I love deep diving into these unknown, albeit powerful figures that exist in folklore. There is so much mystique surrounding them, and it's really fun for me to peel them back layer by layer. I'm going to start by taking a look at the Morgana from our own folklore. First of all, Morgana isn't just known as Morgana. In fact, she is known under many aliases, most of which are close variations of the name Morgana. However, the alias that most of us are probably most accustomed to is Morgana Le Fay, which means Morgana the Fairy. She was a talented enchantress, and like Merlin, was prevalent in both Arthurian legend and Welsh poetry. The concept of Morgana that we're most familiar with first appears in writer Geoffrey of Monmouth's work entitled Vita Merlini, or The Life of Merlin, which was written in 1150. Vita Merlini was a Latin poem written in 1,529 hexameter lines, and it tells the story of Merlin's madness, his life as a wild man of the woods, and his prophecies and conversations with his sister. Though popular, Vita Merlini never matched the popularity of Monmouth's Historia Regum Britanniae, published in 1136, which was a pseudo-historical account of British history that portrayed Merlin in a bit of a different light. In Monmouth's earliest edition of Vita Merlini, Morgana is referred to as Morgen, a name which means sea-born. The name survived in Middle Welsh as Morien, and the cognate form in Old Irish is Muegen, the name of a shape-shifting female saint commonly associated with the sea. Basically, Morgana's name exists in about 10,000 other formats. Morgana's epithet, Le Fay, wasn't actually introduced until much later, and was first introduced by writer Thomas Malory in the 15th century. It has been expressed that Le Fay can be used interchangeably with La Fay, and the character that Malory discussed was based off of remnants of supernatural females from Celtic mythology. The earliest account of Morgana's character appears in Vita Merlini, and Morgana is mentioned in reference to the Isle of Apples, Avalon, where King Arthur, remember him, was being carried after being fatally wounded in the Battle of Camlan. In Vita Merlini, and in many other works, Morgana's character is portrayed in a very morally righteous light, and her role was that of a great healer. It is also in author Chrétien de Troyes' work that Morgana is first introduced as King Arthur's supernatural elder sister, a familial connection that isn't consistent across all tales pertaining to Arthurian legend. Yes, that's right, Morgana was the sister of King Arthur, Arthur Pendragon. Morgana is a tough pseudo-historical figure to summarize because, across many pieces of literature, she has been reintroduced with so many different names, titles, and abilities. Perhaps the most interesting thing about Morgana's character, however, is her moral ambivalence and how it evolved through folklore. Early appearances of Morgan do not elaborate her character beyond her role as a goddess, a fae, a witch, or a sorceress. Generally benevolent and related to King Arthur as his magical savior and protector, her prominence increased over time, as did her moral ambivalence, and in some texts, there is an evolutionary transformation of her to an antagonist. And while Morgana is first introduced in Vita Merlini, the story that I know her character best from once again circles back to the story of King Arthur, Merlin, and the Knights of the Round Table. The story, which has been subject to copious adaptations over the years, tells the tale of King Arthur, his court, his kingdom, and his most trustworthy men. The Knights of the Round Table were a suborder of the Knights of Camelot, created by Arthur Pendragon, and they helped him fight dragons, evildoers, and all sorts of other enemies. In some adaptations of the story, Merlin and the Knights of Camelot even help Arthur to combat his own sister, Morgana Pendragon. In the works of Robert de Boron, Morgana is established as the youngest daughter of Arthur's mother, Igraine, and her first husband, Godroi. Arthur, who is the son of Igraine and Uther, is therefore Morgan's half-brother. And just like that, her character had been completely reintroduced, Where she was previously painted as a morally righteous healer with connection to the sea and no familial relation to Arthur, Morgana suddenly became the evil sister of Arthur, intent on conquering Camelot. This version of Morgana, who came to prominence through the works of Thomas Malory, was Arthur's greatest enemy, constantly plotting to usurp his throne. This version of Morgana is not just evil, but pure evil, as her reasons for hating Arthur and his kingdom are never fully explained. She just seems to possess an extreme antipathy towards the perfect goodness which he symbolizes. So, this evil antagonist, Morgana, how powerful is she? How much of a threat did she pose? Well, given the fact that this representation of Morgana is said to rival Merlin, the most powerful wizard of all time, I think that it's a safe bet to say that Morgana was the most powerful witch of all time. Morgana is such an enigmatic figure. Her very existence has been adapted in so many ways, and the fact that her morality flip-flops from story to story makes her particularly compelling. Not only that, but her proposed levels of power give her a certain allure, and we, as human beings, have a propensity to be intrigued by those that exhibit power. And I think that that is perhaps how Morgana, a character from our own folklore, ended up in Harry Potter. We first hear of Morgana Le Fay in the Harry Potter universe, when Ron mentions that he has about 6 of her chocolate frog card. I've got Morgana again, and I've got about 6 of her. Chocolate frog cards generally feature iconic witches and wizards of history, so the fact that she made the cut is a testament to her prominence as a historical figure, even in the Harry Potter universe. Her card makes it very clear that she was a very powerful, dark witch, and this directly sums up the version of Morgana the Harry Potter universe adopted. We got the evil Morgana, not the morally righteous one. Provided that her card describes her as a very powerful witch, I think that it's reasonable to assume that Morgana was extremely versed in the dark arts, possessing knowledge of all of the dark spells that we are accustomed to, and perhaps many more. If she was the adversary of Merlin, the most powerful wizard to have ever lived, I imagine she must have had a few tricks up her sleeve. What I find quite interesting about Morgana is that despite being evil, she possessed immense knowledge of powerful healing abilities. We generally associate healing and the ability to heal with those that are morally good or righteous, but Morgana contradicts this. In fact, now that I think about it, Grindelwald also contradicts this, as he too had an immense understanding of healing charms. Could this perhaps suggest a familial connection between the two of them? Maybe Dumbledore is the descendant of Merlin, and Grindelwald is a descendant of Morgana. Wouldn't that be interesting? Consistent with some adaptations of folklore, the Morgana of Harry Potter is related to Arthur. She is his half-sister. She ruled over and was the queen of the Isle of Avalon, which is now known as Glastonbury. She not only possessed great knowledge of the dark arts and healing magic, but is also said to have been able to transform into a bird at will. This suggests that Morgana was perhaps one of the earliest to become an animagus. Morgana was a truly powerful and enigmatic figure, and I think that what makes her most interesting is the unpredictable duality of her nature, exhibiting the potential for both good and evil, depending on the story. And that's it for this video. Did you guys know about Morgana already? If so, what did you know about her? It was fun to make this video, so let me know if there are any other relatively unknown or alluring characters that you want me to explore. Until next time, you're a wizard, Harry!